Ms Jan Barham.
Mr President, I rise to speak to the motion moved by the Honourable Rick Collis regarding the New South Wales state election results for the Far North Coast, and I do so as the Greens spokesperson for the Far North Coast. I note that this motion is about the election results in the seats of Ballina, Lismore and Tweed, but it reads like a game score. Let's be clear, it's not a game for point scoring, it's about democracy and the people and the power that's with the people to assess the candidates and parties that present themselves to the electorate and vote accordingly. It's about not only the promises they make in the frenzy of an election, but the performance of the parties and individuals in standing up and speaking out for communities and the history of their performance and representation. It's obvious that the motion seeks to belittle the efforts of the Labor Party and to deny the success of the Greens in an area that for too long has been considered National Party heartland. I acknowledge the Greens' first regional member of the lower house who has successfully won the seat of Ballina, Tamara Smith, who's in the gallery.
What about Cunningham?
And I also acknowledge some of the comments by the Honourable Walt Secord that this motion does appear to contain satire and irony and creates the opportunity for a bit of theatre in this place. But it's true that the North Coast, in the late 1980s when I moved there, was National Party heartland. And it's fair to say that it wasn't easy being Green at that time. But since 1993, the Greens have presented candidates to the electorate. The first time they did so was in 1993 for the Richmond federal election. But since that time, the Greens have presented themselves and credible candidates for every state, local and federal election. Our first success of a Green candidate securing election was in 1995 with Richard Staples gaining a seat on Byron Shire Council. I first presented as a candidate for the Greens in 1996 for a council by-election, but then went on to present for state and federal campaigns. The Greens have consistently presented to the electorate the core principles that underpin the party: social and economic equity, peace and non-violence, ecological sustainability and grassroots democracy. And we've heard a bit about that from speakers previously. We've heard about what it means to an electorate to be respected, to be heard, to be listened to about core issues, and that is something that underpins the Greens and the way that they do politics. And sadly, it's evident that the major parties have lost their way, despite the fact that this election there were some increase in the practices of door knocking, public meetings, talking to people, the recognition that the Greens have taken up this way of doing politics as a true commitment to grassroots, and the major parties in the Far North Coast sought to go back to the tradition of local democracy. Throughout the last 20 years and more, we've seen an increasing trend of disadvantage for the region of the Far North Coast. There have been threats to the viability of the region as jobs decrease, infrastructure pressures grow, biodiversity ravaged by developer greed and state governments' disregard for our precious forests, coastlines and the loss of valuable agricultural land. There's been changes that have seen the area become unaffordable due to sea changes and tree changes and tourism, and with a lack of affordable housing, a lack of employment and a greater need for support services that have gone unmet. These issues have all combined to build a strong community that has stood up for their rights to be heard and their needs met. The Greens have offered an alternative vision from the major parties that's resonated with the community. They've grown to trust us, and as we've stood up for their interests. This has been evident in election results. We've seen the Greens vote grow steadily over time. We've seen the state seat of Ballina increase its vote for the Greens in each election. From a vote of 8.5 in 1999, it then grew to 19.65%, which I'm proud to say I was the candidate in 2003.
Good candidate you were.
And continued to rise to the election of Tamara Smith in the 2005 election with a vote of 27.02%. In the seat of Lismore, the vote too has steadily risen. In 1999, John Corker received a vote of 9.7%, and then he increased that vote to 15% in 2003. And in 2015, Greens candidate Adam Guise secured a vote of 26.43%. A fantastic achievement by an outstanding candidate. This election saw the electorate send a very strong message to the National Party, and I think also to the Labor Party. We all know that a major issue affecting the loss of votes was very much due to the issue of CSG and the community's concern for the future of the region that might be delivered by the onslaught of this unwanted industry. The Bentley blockade was a great success for the communities. It united a diverse group of people. It was extraordinary to see what some call strange bedfellows coming together: traditional National Party voters, farmers, teachers, nurses, doctors, lawyers, and a few hippies and alternative people, turning up at 6 a.m. every morning for a Greet the Dawn. It was truly an amazing grassroots community action. This happened because, particularly as a message to the National Party, farmers and traditional constituents were standing up against the party they felt had abandoned them, and instead standing side by side with the Greens, who stood up for their future interests. I'd like to acknowledge the tireless campaigning of my colleague Jeremy Buckingham and his very able staff for his efforts in the last term of Parliament in highlighting the concerns of the community about CSG. It's been an important part of that campaign, the work that's happened in this place and resonated out throughout the community. But this was not the only issue, and does not acknowledge a key issue facing all the political parties. I should say all major political parties. The electorates of the North Coast are engaged and stand together against the unsustainable policies of those major parties. Sadly, their concerns were not heard on so many issues, and I'd like to take this opportunity to put on the record some further concerns about key issues that were raised during that election campaign, and also to note that I was very proud to be of assistance to the campaigns in Ballina-Tweed and Lismore, and to attend some of the candidate forums. And despite some of the comments made by the Honourable Rick Collis about the commitment of local representatives, I think candidate forums really identify whether or not we have true locals who understand the issues of the community. And unfortunately, there were moments in some of those candidate forums where I truly felt uncomfortable with some of the major party candidates, because they did not have the history. They didn't understand the issues. They hadn't stood side by side with the community on so many of those issues the way the Greens had, to have that historical understanding of the importance of local issues. And one of those issues is the one that's been raised a number of times in this House, the West Byron Urban Release Project in Byron Bay. This overdevelopment of the iconic tourism destination had a momentum in the community, as the site had been assessed for decades for its suitability for urban development. Time and time again it had been rejected as the constraints of the site and the potential negative impacts of an urban development went against the principles of sustainable design and put at risk the character and the amenity of that important tourist location. But despite the evidence and the strong community opposition, the coalition government, with the Honourable Prue Goward as Minister for Planning, approved a rezoning that will allow the development of this land. A big mistake that was recognised by the community and was the basis for the outrage that had been felt when the community was ignored. Another issue is one that I've also raised in this place and will continue to do so, and that's the management of Crown lands, and in particular the mismanagement and irresponsible adoption of plans of management for the much-loved caravan parks of Brunswick Heads. Again, it's an issue with a long history, not forgotten by locals. In the last term of government, we saw the continuation of the greed-inspired management of Crown lands that was witnessed under the ALP government when it wrongly dismissed the Byron Shire Council from its management and redevelopment policy for the parks. When will a government accept that these Crown lands are not the cash cow of the state government? When will a government accept and understand that local communities value these areas beyond the lot boundaries and see their value in the ecological, heritage, recreational and economic benefit they provide for the whole community, including those who visit the area? The lack of respect for the wishes of the community to protect and preserve these areas is underestimated by the major parties. This government is now being asked to review the decisions of the past and recognise that mistakes have been made and correct them by dismissing those plans of management. There were many other issues that affected the outcome of the recent election, and I think this opportunity to raise them is important because lessons need to be learned, not for the sake of the politics and the parties and the votes that they gain at election time, but for the people of the far north coast, an area that has been undervalued and underrepresented for too long. We need to look seriously at the needs of the regions and recognise that there will and continue to be electoral changes. The community of the far north coast has awareness of the disadvantage and are caring for their fellow citizens. They understand the vulnerability of the area. We see our friends and families losing access to services, to the availability of housing, the lack of jobs and the lack of training opportunities. And these are the issues that the Greens are addressing. We recognise those needs of our community and we have solutions because we listen and respect their rights and their ideas. Our vote will continue to grow on the North Coast because we are part of the community, genuinely there with them all the time, not just at election time, and not bringing in people from afar to make a difference to the numbers you have on the ground or how many leaflets you can press in someone's hand with, images and slogans that replicate and mimic what the Greens do day in, day out. People aren't fooled by this. They are looking for the people they trust, and they trust us. That's been proven in this election because we stand up for our communities against the greed and the business interests that governments of all persuasions favour. I acknowledge that there's some factual relevance in this motion, but also the omission in the motion regarding the success of the Greens at this election. And I put forward an amendment on the motion to recognise the historical vote that has seen the election of the first Green member of Ballina and the first regional lower house seat achieved by the Green and lost to the National Party. Mr President...
may I just interrupt the honourable member briefly to say, do you have it on a piece of paper?
I do.
And therefore, would you like to actually formally move it, please?
I would like to formally move it.
Do it now, please.
Mr President, I move that paragraph 2 be amended by inserting after, quote, back to the Nationals, the words, quote, congratulates the Greens for Tamara Smith's historic win in Ballina and Adam Geyser's strong challenge in Lismore. I do that with great pride, and at this point I would like to thank all the members and supporters of the Greens on the North Coast for their long-term commitment and their trust in the Greens and their commitment to go out and door knock thousands of homes and stand on streets, talk to their neighbours, ring random phone numbers to talk to their community about the things that matter, the things they believe in, the things they know that the Greens represent, and that's why this motion is warmly welcomed in terms of giving us the opportunity to talk about the great shift that's happening on the North Coast and the pride that we as Greens feel in being able to represent the people who have been forgotten and left behind, but they will not be neglected. They will be heard, and they do vote, and they will vote time and time again for us. Thank you for the motion, the Honourable Rick Collis.
Mr. President,